In our last conversation, we talked about the graveyard of hobbies. We looked at the neuroscience of quitting, and we mapped out how to build the mental muscle of tenacity, the part of your brain that helps you push through when things get uncomfortable. But for some of you, something unexpected happened. A different problem surfaced. Because what if sticking with things isn't your issue? What if the real problem is that you have too many things you want to stick with? You look at your life and you don't see one clear road forward. You see 10, 12, and somehow every one of them feels like you. You're not afraid of effort. You're not scared of hard work. You're paralyzed by choice. This is what's often called the scanner's dilemma, perfectly captured by the sentence, "I could do anything if I only knew what it was." And society has a word for people like you, a word that quietly hurts. They call you a dilettante, a jack of all trades, master of none. And the anxiety that label creates is intense because it feels like the very thing that makes you interesting, your curiosity, might also be your biggest career liability. Today, we're going to dismantle that anxiety. We're going to talk about the geometry of a successful career, and we're going to outline a path for people who were never meant to be just one thing. Why old career advice feels like a trap. To understand your situation, we have to understand the world that created traditional career advice. For most of the last century, society rewarded the specialist. The world was predictable, stable, almost like a chessboard. The rules were clear, the feedback was fast, and success came from going a mile deep in one narrow field. Psychologists call this a kind learning environment. It rewards repetition, it rewards consistency. This is the world of the I-shaped person, someone with a single deep pillar of expertise. And in that world, specialization made perfect sense. But that's not the world we live in anymore. Today, we live in what researchers call a wicked learning environment. The rules change constantly, feedback is delayed or unclear, patterns are hidden. Think about the difference between a golfer and a firefighter. A golfer operates in a kind environment. The rules never change. The feedback is immediate. A firefighter operates in a wicked environment. Every situation is new, the rules are uncertain, and past expertise doesn't always apply. In a wicked world, hyper-specialization can create blind spots. Now, let me be clear. Specialists are still incredibly valuable. The problem isn't specialization itself. The problem is treating it as the only valid path and using it as the standard to judge everyone. That's what leaves people like you feeling broken when your brain is simply designed for a different kind of world. Stop thinking in job titles, start thinking in shapes. To build a career that fits your brain, you have to stop thinking in terms of job titles and start thinking in shapes. We already talked about the I shape. At the other extreme is the dash-shaped person, a mile wide and an inch deep. This is where many curious people get stuck, knowing a little about everything, but never building solid ground anywhere. That lack of depth creates anxiety because it feels like you're floating, with nothing stable to stand on. But there is another shape, and for people like you, it's the most powerful one. The M-shaped professional, also known as the polymath. Here's what that looks like. You go deep in one area, that's one pillar. You go deep in a second area, that's another pillar. And connecting those pillars is a wide bridge of curiosity, psychology, history, design, systems thinking. For example, one pillar might be data science. It pays the bills. Another pillar might be storytelling. You go deep there too. Suddenly, you're not a distracted data scientist. You're the person who can turn complex data into stories that decision makers actually understand. That combination is rare, and rarity creates value. The hidden skill, far transfer. Specialists rely on near transfer, applying a skill to a very similar problem. Polymaths use far transfer. They see the structure underneath the problem and apply it somewhere completely different. Someone who understands the branching structure of tree roots might suddenly see a better way to organize a company's database. A musician who understands harmony might see a more elegant way to structure software code. That's far transfer. It's the ability to see the music, not just the notes. And all those random interests you've collected over the years, they're not distractions. They're your library of metaphors. How to actually build an M-shaped life. This path requires a different strategy. 1. Serial mastery. You cannot build all your pillars at once. That leads straight back to shallow chaos. Instead, you build one pillar at a time. Choose one focus, commit to it for a season, 6 to 18 months. Not forever, just for now. The anxiety comes from thinking this choice defines your entire life. It doesn't. You're choosing a chapter, not the whole book. A good first pillar is often the one that creates stability, or the one that has the most energy right now. Build it until you reach fluency. Not perfection, not world-class mastery, just the point where you can solve most problems without panic. Then, when your curiosity feels satisfied, you move on. That's not quitting, that's graduating. 2. Use stability as a strategic asset. If your mind craves exploration, stability is not your enemy. Many polymaths, Einstein included, had stable, low-drain jobs. His job as a patent clerk gave him mental breathing room. Your day job doesn't have to be your passion. It can be your platform. A job that drains 60% of your energy is usable. A job that drains 110% leaves nothing left for growth. Reframe stability as fuel. 3. Externalize your curiosity. Let's be honest, a scanner's brain produces more ideas than it can hold. Your mind is a factory. Your working memory is a tiny workbench. If you don't move ideas off the bench, everything collapses. That's why you need an external system. Niklas Luhmann, one of the most prolific scholars in history, used a simple system called a Zettelkasten. One idea, one note, linked to another. Over time, those connections did the thinking for him. When you get obsessed with medieval architecture for a week, write it down, store it, then let it go without guilt. Years later, it might become the missing insight for a completely different problem, but only if you captured it. Putting it all together. You are not a dabbler who lacks grit. You are a scanner, a potential polymath. Your brain isn't designed for a static world. It's designed to build bridges between worlds. This path takes patience and structure, but once you have a map, something shifts. The self-blame fades, and it's replaced by quiet confidence. Pick one pillar, build it deeply, use stability as support, not a cage, and store your curiosity so it can compound over time. You were never meant to master just one thing. You were meant to understand how things connect.